Good morning, football fans, and welcome to this Friday morning episode of Morning Kickoff, a weekly show where we cover all news football. I'm your host, Matt Whit, and today we are live on the Morning Kickoff YouTube channel. Morning Kickoff, that would be youtube.com/Matt Whit. We are live every Monday and Thursday from Minneapolis, Minnesota. However, today we are live on a Friday. We kicked it back one day because the NFL draft has officially happened and a lot went down in the NFL draft. We're going to specifically look at my Minnesota Vikings because I feel like I have a lot more to talk about what my Minnesota Vikings did in this draft and what's going to continue to go on than talking about the AJ Brown and AJ Brown and Hollywood Brown trades that went down of yesterday's draft. We're going to look at my Vikings here because there's a lot to talk about, but this is the Morning Kickoff YouTube channel where we are live every Monday and Thursday morning around 9 o'clock Central. Today is April 29th, 2022, one day removed since the Minnesota Vikings drafted Lewis Cine in the first round of the draft at the 32nd overall pick. We're here to discuss that. We're here to discuss this Vikings team, and we're here to discuss a lot of controversy around the Minnesota Vikings and trading back in this year's draft. Hope you all do enjoy. Do you enjoy listening to this podcast? If you don't, that's totally fine. But if you do and would like to help out, there will be a link in the description that will bring you to my merch store. At this store, we sell t-shirts, sweatshirts, and mugs, and all of the profit earned will go towards the production of this podcast. Thank you all, and enjoy the show. The Minnesota Vikings draft Lewis Cine, free safety out of Georgia, with the 32nd pick in this year's draft. First off, I just want to give a little disclaimer for a lot of you guys. When you come into this podcast, when you come into this YouTube show, when you come into this show, do not expect to see your typical, everything's optimistic, everything's great, we're here to have a good time. We're not Good Morning Football. We're Morning Kickoff. We're a little biased. Yes, we're a little pessimistic. We're not here to get all you guys' hopes up. We're going to be real here. Okay, first off, I just want to say with this Lewis Cine pick for the Minnesota Vikings, they picked Lewis Cine 32nd overall out of Georgia, the speedster, hard-hitting safety. Definitely worth the 32nd overall pick. Now, him being a safety, obviously, his tanked his draft stock a little bit. If he was more hybrid of a position, maybe he would be a more corner. That would completely change the story with him. So I do believe Lewis Cine is a good draft pick with the 32nd overall pick who can step in day one onto our defense. His problem is in coverage, and obviously with his speed, with his hard-hitting tackling, he's probably going to work in the league. And I see what Kwesi is doing here. I completely see what he's doing here. He's taking a player who he knows is going to work in the league. This is Kwesi's first draft pick. This is his introduction into being a GM, and it's likely going to work. We're going to look back at this draft pick, and my prediction is that it does work, and it's a good look for Kwesi. Now, that aside, real quick. Yes, like I said, we're going to be completely real here, and all respect to Lewis Cine. I do believe he's worth a 32nd overall draft pick. I believe everything else the Minnesota Vikings did in the first day of the draft was completely an utter idiot. Look at what Kwesi did here. Kwesi, with the 12th overall draft pick, he had many options with the 12th overall draft pick, who to bring in, who to trade down for, what to get from this trade, and what did he do? He took Jameson Williams, wide receiver of Alabama, the best deep threat in this draft class, the fastest player in this draft class, who's going to be 100% coming off of this ACL injury, and said, Dan Campbell, Detroit Lions, division rival, you guys can have him. We don't want him. Why would we want the best deep threat in this class? Why would we want an all-around outstanding wideout from Alabama to come onto our team? And we completely handed him to Dan Campbell. We handed him to the Detroit Lions, who we have to play twice a year. This is what Kwesi did. This was his first move in the draft, was giving arguably the best wide receiver in this draft class to a division rival. That was absolutely stupid, and it blows my mind. If you made a trade with someone in the AFC, fine. You can give Jameson Williams to the AFC. Completely fine with that. But you're giving a player like Jameson Williams to the Detroit Lions, a player who's expected now is almost fully recovered from his ACL injury, and is, if it wasn't for the ACL injury, would likely have been a top 10 pick, and now you're handing him to the division rival? I was so happy. I was so happy going into this draft knowing for once we don't have a great wide receiver in our division. Allen Robinson's out of Chicago. Devontae Adams out of Green Bay. Us not having a great corner is fine because we don't have a wide receiver like Jameson Williams to work with. Now, obviously, assuming that he works in the league, given we could have taken Jameson Williams with this pick. Going into the press conference with Kwesi after the draft, Kwesi said, if we didn't make this trade with Detroit, then someone else would have, and Detroit would have traded up to take Jameson Williams. That's not the case. We could have taken Jameson Williams. Are we just going to sit here and act like we don't need a wide receiver? Are we going to sit here and act like, obviously, looking right now, we might not completely need a wide receiver. It's not our top 3 biggest need. But when you have a player like Jameson Williams, who's easily the best player available to come onto your team, and you completely miss. And if you did not decide to take Williams, fine. You had Kyle Hamilton on the board. You had so many players on the board who you can plug in as starters and make an immediate impact in the league. You really chose Lewis Cine from Georgia over Kyle Hamilton. The do-it-all safety, the pass-rushing safety, the hard-hitting safety, the safety that could have, that at the next level, made an immediate impact and been that big of a difference on our defense, on the secondary that desperately needed help. Yes, I don't believe the Vikings should have taken a corner with the 12th pick, and I'm fine with them deciding to trade down, but not with the Detroit Lions, handing the Detroit Lions Jameson Williams. And what did you get out of this trade? What did Kwesi and the Minnesota Vikings get out of this trade? I'm fine with us trading down. Not with the Lions. But what did we get out of this trade? A 3rd-round draft pick. The Minnesota Vikings traded down, 22 spots in this draft, in the 1st round of this draft, and got a 3rd-round draft pick. Yes, we swapped 2nd-round picks. Okay, we moved up 12 spots in the 2nd round. Okay, you can, fine. That's okay. But realistically, we got a 3rd-round draft pick after we swapped our 2nd-round draft picks. With this, Lewis Cine, yes, all respect to him. With all due respect to Lewis Cine, I would have much rather have stayed at that 12th pick, brought in Kyle Hamilton, brought in Jameson Williams, or traded down to somewhere in the middle round, and we can add someone to this defensive front. Maybe Devontae Wyatt, maybe Jordan Davis, maybe we can add Trent McDuffie. There was a lot of options Kwesi had here, and he made maybe the worst choice, in my opinion. It's not the fact that we traded down that I'm mad. It's the fact that we handed arguably the best wideout to a division rival. And we didn't have to. Now, what is our plan against Jameson Williams? Assuming that he's 100% by week 1, the best deep threat in this draft class. What is our plan? I don't know. We don't have a corner right now. Now, we do hold the 34th overall draft pick. We did swap 2nd rounders with the Detroit Lions, so we do hold that draft pick where we can bring in Andrew Booth, maybe swing on him, see if he can work at the next level. We do have a few options here, but with that being said, I am fine with Lewis Cine. I'm happy that he's coming to our team. Now, was he worth the 32nd overall draft pick? You can say it's a little bit of an overdraft. At the end of the day, the guy is a complete monster. And him stepping onto our defense will make an immediate impact. Him being alongside Harrison Smith and having Ed Donatello coach him up will help him develop. And I do believe that when we look back at this draft, we will say that this was a solid draft pick. But when we also look back at this draft, we will say that the trade with Detroit will go down as one of the worst trades in this franchise history. We're going to have to wait and see, though. Detroit, we're going to see, maybe Detroit ruins his career. I mean, we're going to have to wait and see. The way Detroit's looking, they just got Aiden Hutchinson and Jameson Williams. They got arguably the best pass rusher and arguably the best wideout in this draft class going onto their team now. Now, I don't think that, obviously, next year they're going to be a competitor, but looking back at this draft, we could say that this would arguably one of the best drafts from the Lions in franchise history, getting Aiden Hutchinson and Jameson Williams when we did not have to hand them Jameson Williams, because let's be honest, even if we didn't draft Jameson Williams, it's very unlikely he would have ended up in Detroit. But at the end of the day, look at the Packers. At least the Packers didn't get a wide receiver. At least the Packers didn't get an offensive guard. At least they're in a terrible spot. So we have something to look at. We have something to smile about in this 1st round of the draft. Now, looking at the 2nd round of the draft, the Vikings have a lot of needs in this 2nd round of the draft. We have 4 draft picks I think it's 3 draft picks in the day 2 of the draft. So that's the second and third round of the draft. We're going to be making our predictions, as I believe there is some talent that's going to come onto this Vikings organization coming into the second and third round. Obviously, day 1 of the draft, I just ranted a little bit. I got all my steam out that I had to say about this first round of the draft, how terrible of a trade it was to hand Jameson Williams to a division rival. Trading down to take a safety was not the greatest move, and you didn't get a whole lot out of this trade. So, biggest needs for the Vikings, number 1 still remains cornerback. After that, we have a big gap, and then the rest of our needs. We have edge rusher, we have interior offensive line, specifically at center and right guard. We have linebacker. We do need another linebacker to be that next man up from Eric Kendricks, and also someone to play alongside Eric Kendricks, because as of right now, Jordan Hicks is starting at linebacker. Not the best case scenario for us. We can get a next man up there as well. I also believe tight end, a little bit under the weather still. I believe tight end's a big need for the Vikings, and it's that's going under the radar. We do really need a tight end right now, as Irv Smith Jr. suffered with injuries, and we can't confirm that he's going to be completely healthy the next season. And when healthy, we can't confirm that it's going to be the Irv Smith Jr. that we saw at Alabama, because that Irv Smith Jr. has yet to really start in the NFL, and now he's going into year 4, I believe. We also do need wide receiver, which is why I was hoping in the first round the Vikings could have drafted a wide receiver. Again, not the biggest need for the Vikings. If they don't take a receiver until the 6th round, I'm fine with that as well. But to be making our predictions with the 34th overall draft pick, after the Vikings swapped second rounders with the Detroit Lions in the trade, I believe the Vikings are going to draft, in my prediction, Andrew Booth Jr., cornerback from Clemson. As of right now, like I said, corner is the biggest need for the Vikings, and Booth is a perfect fit onto this Vikings defense next season. Would likely be a day 1 starter over Cameron Dantzler. If not, he can start on the bench. He has some coverage issues, so that is obviously workable. Going into the next level, he's going to be working with Patrick Peterson, Harrison Smith, 2 future Hall of Famers. Hopefully Harrison Smith can make the Hall of Fame, but at the end of the day, 2 Pro Bowlers and all pros in the past can work with him, help him develop. He will also be playing with Cameron Dantzler. So 2 lengthy corners right there to be playing onto our defense if he is drafted by the Vikings with the 34th pick. Andrew Booth, a player I would have liked to see the Vikings bring at 32. Another name to mention here is Nakobe Dean, fellow teammate of Lewis Cine, who we drafted in the first round. Another Georgia defensive player, multiple Georgia defensive players, is arguably the best player on the board. However, if I was Kwesi, I would not take Nakobe Dean. There's a lot of linebackers that you can take in the middle rounds of this draft, who also have his talent. I mean, Nakobe Dean, all respect to him, he's kind of a safety playing linebacker, but if the Vikings take him, I'm still fine with that, as it is a big need for us on our defense. It's really going to come down to who the Buccaneers do take with the 33rd pick. I mean, the Buccaneers have the option of taking a quarterback. They also could take Andrew Booth. They do need another corner, as every other 32 teams in the league need a corner, but I'm hoping Booth can fall to us at the 34th pick, and the Vikings can use him on our defense with the 66th pick, which would be the 3rd rounder from Detroit. I believe the Vikings will take Perrion Winfrey, the defensive tackle from Oklahoma Sooners. I think he's going to fall this far. Now, obviously, Perrion Winfrey, one of the most explosive defensive tackles in the league. I'm hoping with the 66th pick, if this was a hopeful pick, I really want Daniel Faalele, the offensive tackle from Minnesota. Ski-U-Ma, my Minnesota Gophers. I would love the guy. Now, obviously, he played right tackle at Minnesota, so I'd expect him to play more right guard if he was to come to our Vikings team. My personal pick, Faalele is going to go 2nd round. He's not going to fall to the 3rd round at the 66th pick, but who I believe will be Perrion Winfrey, defensive tackle from Oklahoma. Absolutely explosive off the snap from a defensive tackle, and could come onto our defense and start day 1. Even though he'd be a 3rd round draft pick, I think he is a potential starter day 1 and can play with Harrison Phillips and Delvin Tomlinson. So 2 big, massive guys will help him develop at the next level. Perrion Winfrey, 66 overall pick. I think this is more of a... this is not really a hopeful pick. If I was doing hopeful picks, I'd say Daniel Faalele or Tyreek Woolen or one of these players could also be drafted by us. I'm just doing a most likely pick. If I was going to be making my predictions, if I'm putting money on it, I would say Winfrey coming to our defense at the 66th pick. So those are multiple defensive players, first 3 draft picks, all defensive players. With the 77th pick, this would be our original 3rd round pick for the Vikings in the 3rd round of the draft. I absolutely love this pick. The Vikings take Jeremy Ruckert, tight end of the Ohio State OSU rival in the Big Ten. I love this guy. Unlike Winfrey Booth Jr., I watched so much of Ruckert in college. And if he is available at the 77th pick, this is a dream, hopeful, pray to God pick that he comes to onto our team. Like I said, we're kind of dismissing the fact that we do need a tight end right now. I'm gonna go with the fact that Irv Smith Jr. has one more year left on his contract, and he just suffers with injuries every year. If the guy goes down with the injury, we need someone to step up at tight end. Like we saw from this last season, tight end is a huge, massive position that you need filled in the league. As of right now, if Irv Smith Jr. Suffers with another injury, we have no backup plan at tight end, and Rucker is a perfect offensive master. This man is elite in the red zone, and I would love to have another red zone threat to add to our team who can eat up touchdowns. We need another one of those tight ends. We haven't had one since Kyle Rudolph. Massive wingspan, big body guy, could help us at the next level. If I was going to compare him actually to a tight end in the NFL, I would compare him to Tyler Higbee. Yeah, he's slow. Yeah, he's not the most athletic. At the end of the day, he catches everything that comes into his area. He eats up touchdowns, and the guy's a great blocker. And Tyler Higbee, Rams tight end, who coached for the Rams this last year, who was their offensive coordinator, Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell made Tyler Higbee look like an all-pro tight end. He can come onto this team. Rucker can come onto our offense and also look like an all-pro tight end. This is a dream pick. I would love to have him come onto our team if he is sitting at the 77th pick, which I believe more likely than not, he would be available with the 77th pick. Not as many teams are needing a wide or a tight end right now. I believe more teams are going to be looking at receiver more than Ruckert from Ohio State. But I'd love him to come onto our team with the 77th pick, and that is my prediction for the Minnesota Vikings to get him, tight end of OSU, to get Perrion Winfrey, defensive tackle of Oklahoma, and with the 34th pick to be able to land Andrew Booth Jr. of Clemson. That's what I'm hoping happens. Looks like a lot of people are agreeing with me that this trade was horrible. And I've mentioned it. This trade was god awful. And I just don't understand at all what Kwesi is thinking here. I didn't mind the idea of trading down. Yeah, you had a lot of options of players to draft with the 12th pick. I hate the idea of trading down with the Lions. I mean, can someone explain? And we didn't get a whole lot also. Let's not forget, we really just got a third-round pick. We traded second-rounders, got a third-round pick. We traded down, 22 spots? 20 spots. I think exactly 20 spots, and got a third-round pick. Absolutely stupid trade for Kwesi to make. And it feels like every time I'm talking about something bad about Kwesi, I did this when they extended Kirk Cousins as well, I'm getting completely bashed. Why are we treating Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah like the next coming of Jesus Christ? The guy hasn't done anything for our organization yet. What is there to completely love? What is there to treat him like God? A lot of Vikings fans are doing. Now, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and say that he's going to be a great or a terrible GM. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not switching sides here, as I did like the signing a lot. Like I said, the guy hasn't done anything for this organization, so I'm not going to also sit here and say that he's a terrible GM, that he's not doing anything, because he's never been a GM in history. There's nothing to go off of, and he hasn't really done a whole lot for our team so far. We're waiting to see how this plans out, but as of right now, I'm surprised to see how many lovers of Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah there are. I like the signing, but I'm going to wait and see before I treat him like the next coming of Jesus Christ. Before I treat him like God, I'm going to wait and see what he does for this organization, because it feels like we kind of forget that who you draft and how you develop these players says a lot about who you are as a GM. And right now, let's be honest, would you rather have Lewis seen with the 32nd pick and a third rounder? Or would you rather have Kyle Hamilton with the 12th pick and not have Jameson Williams at Detroit? If I could press a button to undo this trade, I would press that 10 times out of 10. As of right now, this sounds like a terrible trade. Absolutely stupid trade for the Minnesota Vikings organization. LGKDOC says honeymoon is over. Actions will now be judged. Absolutely. Coming into this organization, I'm going to say right now, I'm still a fan of Kwesi. I'm not going to switch sides right now. I like the guy, but I'm not loving the guy like a lot of people on Twitter, like a lot of people on Reddit who, like I said, they're treating him like the next coming of Jesus Christ. They're treating this guy like he just won us 5 championships. They're treating this guy like he turned this organization around. The guy has done nothing for this organization yet. There is nothing to be super excited about for Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. He's never been a GM in history. Obviously, only time will tell how great of a GM he will be. I don't hate the draft pick at the 32nd pick. I hate the trade of trading down. And that's what I'm saying here. Mr. Purple Power says, I hate the trade, but I love Cine. He is my safety one. That's exactly what I just said. I completely agree. I do love Lewis Cine. I like him with the 32nd pick. This is nothing against him. With all due respect to Lewis Cine, the trade was absolutely idiotic. Stupid. There's no reason at all to make a trade with someone in your division when you're handing him arguably the best wide receiver in the entire draft class, who you could have drafted too. Let me ask you guys. You have two pills. One is taking Jameson Williams with the 12th overall draft pick. The other is having Lewis Cine with the 32nd draft pick, Jameson Williams going to Detroit, and what do you also get? Just a 3rd round pick. Yeah, you swap 2nd rounders. Okay, we'll throw it in there too. Obviously, you're taking the other pill. Obviously, you're taking Jameson Williams to come onto your team so he doesn't have to go to Detroit where you play him twice a year. And like I said, Detroit is known for ruining careers. So I'm hoping that does happen. Not for Jameson Williams' sake, but for my personal sake, because I don't want to live with the fact knowing that we handed Jameson Williams to the Detroit Lions. I just think it's mind-blowing. I don't know how people can even justify this. They say, give it time. They say, wait, let's see what will happen. Yeah, but as of right now, this is stupid. As of right now, giving arguably the best wide receiver to someone in your division is absolutely idiotic, especially when you had a move where you could have brought him in. I don't hate the idea of trading down. I hate the idea of trading down with the Lions. That's what I hate. AJ Green says, Kwesi going to end up turning us into the new Browns. Wow, that is a hot take. I'm not going to go that far. That's a little tough. That's a little rough. I mean, I guess, well, on the bright side, at least the Browns had a lot of top 5 draft picks, which completely turned their team around, and now they're arguably the best in the AFC North. That's a tough division in the AFC North, especially with the Ravens right now, who did end up getting Kyle Hamilton, who we could have taken with the 12th pick. Ryan Donovan said we traded down 22 spots in round 1 to move up 12 spots in round 2 and a 3rd round pick. Wow, good start. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. I completely agree, and I'm surprised a lot of people are on the same page here. As when I go on Twitter, when I go on Reddit, or how about the time when I talked crap on Kwesi Adofo-Mensah extending Kirk Cousins' contract? Everybody's protecting Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. Everybody just turns into his bodyguard. Like the guy's done anything for our organization. I'm surprised how many people are protecting Kwesi already. Like I said, they're treating him like the next coming of Jesus Christ when the guy has done nothing for our team. He hasn't. And yet people are completely protecting him. All Vikings fans turn into his bodyguard. And when I said something, you can go back, you can see all the comments I had when I was kind of bashing his decision on extending Kirk Cousins and also Harrison Smith. I think it was Harrison Smith who he changed his contract as well. I didn't like those decisions, and I haven't liked really any of the decisions, but still, we'll give it time. We'll see how it pans out. We'll see what happens with Kwesi. I'm not going to sit here and say that he's going to be a terrible GM. Like I said, the guy hasn't done anything yet. We have to wait and see. At the end of the day, I'm surprised to see how many people are protecting the decisions that he's made. LGK says, LOL, Minnesota screwed by Spielman again. Yep, we have, from the looks of things, we have Spielman 2.0 coming into our team. Mr. Purple Power says, I feel like this pure arrogance like the Lions will lose against us anyways. I actually agree. Looking at the Lions, they could completely ruin Jameson Williams' career. And like we've seen in the past, Lions kill careers. And this is really Detroit is the place where careers go to die. It's not just the Lions. We're looking at the Pistons as well here. We're looking at the hockey team as well here. So we're looking at a lot of Detroit teams because Detroit teams are known to really ruin careers. But at the end of the day, still looking at it right now, even though it's the Lions, still a terrible trade to hand them arguably the best receiver in this draft. Deontay McFadden says we got played bad. Absolutely, we got played bad. I'm surprised a lot of people are agreeing with me on like Twitter and Reddit, where everybody's protecting Kwesi, saying, "Oh, give him time. You guys are all switching up." No, I'm staying neutral here on the Kwesi being our GM so far. AJ Green says, I honestly thought they might have grabbed Willis at 32. I think you're talking about Detroit, not Minnesota. I really highly doubt the Vikings are looking to take a quarterback. I'd be surprised if we take a quarterback in any rounds of this draft. As of right now, it just wouldn't made any sense for the Vikings to do that. Deontay McFadden said no, Spielman wouldn't have done this. You were right. Spielman would not have made a trade with Detroit. That would have not been a Spielman move. He would have traded down, but he wouldn't have made a trade with Detroit. So I see what Kwesi's doing here. I don't hate the idea of taking Lewis Cine with the 32nd pick. I believe he's going to work at the next level, and I think he's going to develop onto our defense to end up being maybe a Pro Bowl safety. We'll see how he can look in the future. We'll have to wait and see with Lewis Cine. I don't hate that draft pick. I hate the trade down. I want to make myself very clear here. All due respect to Lewis Cine, I think he's going to be great onto our team. This is just completely Kwesi trading down with the Detroit Lions, which completely grinds my gears. And not only did he trade down with the Detroit Lions, but he got nothing in return. Absolutely nothing in return. Nano Joe says Lions fleece the Vikings. Now they have to deal with Williamson twice a year. I completely agree. Just a stupid trade. And what game plan do we have against Jameson Williams? This guy runs. Let's pull up real quick. Hold on. Let's pull up real quick. What is Jameson Williams? God, what a stupid trade. Okay. Let's pull up this guy. Oh, okay, so we don't actually have what official 40 he ran. That's right, because he torn his ACL. But the guy still is unstoppable. Let's see if he does run a sub. I know he runs a sub 4.3. He might run a sub 4.4. He might run a sub 4.3. I'm not completely sure because we haven't got to see what he could do because he was injured during the combine. The guy is still the best deep threat in this draft class, and Jared Goff obviously is Jared Goff. At the end of the day, it's Jared Goff. We're going to have to wait and see. But if they do end up getting a player like Malik Willis, who has a rocket arm in the second round, maybe that works for them as well. I can't believe it. LGKDOC says Rick Brother works for the Lions front office, I believe. Sounds about right. AJ Green says they should have got the first round pick in next year's draft. They should have got so much more than what they got for trading down with the Detroit Lions. When I actually recorded my reaction because my live stream wasn't working, so I ended up recording my reaction. When I saw the Vikings trade down with the Lions, first of all, I was completely blown away. You traded down with the Lions, you gave them Jameson Williams, that was a surprise. And then I'm thinking, well, the Vikings probably got a lot in return. They probably got a deal that they couldn't turn down, right? No, that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case at all. Not at all. We got a third round pick in return, and we traded down 22 spots, I believe. Yeah, 20 spots. Yeah, 20 spots. And we just swapped second rounders on top of that. So got nothing in return. It was a completely lose-lose situation for us. And I'm sure the Vikings had more offers from other teams. I'm pretty sure maybe the Philadelphia Eagles traded up for a wide receiver, or at least tried to before they traded for AJ Brown, or you probably had other teams looking to trade up. Your only trade call was not from the Detroit Lions. There's no way. There's no way the Detroit Lions were the only option you had to trade down. I would rather have taken literally anybody at that draft pick. AJ Green says he runs a 4.37. Okay, so he does run a sub 4.4. Still incredibly fast. Game plan, yeah, sounds about right. Mr. Purple Power says at least we now get Booth with the 34th pick. Yes, that's my prediction that the Vikings do take Andrew Booth with the 34th pick, assuming the Tampa Bay Buccaneers don't take him with the 33rd pick. The Buccaneers did trade out of their first round pick with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they do need a corner, so they could take Booth. If they do take Booth, I mean, I'm okay with Nakobe Dean. I do like the linebacker coming out of Georgia, also fellow teammate with Lewis Cine. At the end of the day, Nakobe Dean's mostly a safety playing linebacker. He's more of a strong safety, but we'll give him some time. When it comes to Nakobe Dean, it's obviously having safety play linebacker used to be a bad thing. Having undersized linebackers playing linebackers back in the day was a huge red flag. Nowadays, it's okay. I mean, you see multiple small linebackers playing at that position, but it's going to be a huge challenge to see a player like Nakobe Dean going up against a big body tight end. Could you imagine Nakobe Dean try to guard a 6'6", 280-pound tight end? Yeah, I don't know about that one. That's going to be a big issue. I believe he's only 6 foot as well, so I don't see that happening at all. We'll have to see how we'll be able to play alongside Eric Hendricks if he does come onto our defense, but I really do like Andrew Booth Jr. At least we can go home with a corner if we get Andrew Booth Jr. It's going to be interesting to watch who the Vikings take. There's a lot going on. We have the draft and the Gophers have game 6 going on at the same time. Game 6 at home against the Memphis Grizzlies. The Gophers have to win the next 2 in order to advance to go play Golden State into the second round. We're going to have to wait and see. I'll be watching both at the same time. There's going to be 2 TVs running different programs at the same time. LGKDOC says this trade definitely has Minnesota as the initiator. That's why they gave up the 46th. Yeah, stupid trade. Stupid trade. Making a trade with a division rival. How often does that happen? How often do you give this much to a division rival? You are hurting your team. I get it. It's the Detroit Lions. It's not like you're making a trade. It's not like you're giving him a wide receiver to the Packers. That would have been far worse. Gosh, that would have been way worse if you did that. But at the end of the day, you're still giving it to a division rival who you're going to play twice a year. And you're giving him arguably the best wideout in this draft class. What did you need? Another wide receiver. Yeah, it wasn't the big need for the Vikings. I would have been fine with us taking another wideout, but you also had Kyle Hamilton on the clock, who, like I said many times, if you want to go back to the show, I said more likely than not, Kyle Hamilton is still going to be available at 12 for the Vikings. More likely than not. I've said that many times, as he is a safety who would likely fall. He was available on the clock. You could have got him with the 12th pick, plugged him in as a day 1 starter alongside Harrison Smith. You can blitz him. You can do whatever you want with him. There's a lot of options with him. But enough talking about how much the Vikings lost. A lot of teams got a lot in this day. Look at the Jets. If we went into this draft and I told you the Jets would have come up with arguably the best draft, looking at it from right now, after the day of the draft in the last decade, you would not believe me. What did the Jets get? The Jets got Jermaine Johnson after trading up in about the 20s, I believe it was. They got arguably the best corner in this draft, Sauce Gardner, with the 4th pick. They also got Garrett Wilson with the 10th pick. The Jets completely turning their franchise around. Joe Douglas what's his name? Forgot their head coach's name right now. Baldy. He was the defensive coordinator with the Rams or 49ers. His name's slipping my name. This always happens when I'm live. People's head coaches' names slip my mind, but they should be ecstatic about the draft class that they just had. And going forward, that was an amazing draft, outstanding draft for the Jets. And also the Philadelphia Eagles. What an offseason the Eagles have had. What an offseason the Eagles have had. They not only were they able to draft Jordan Davis, arguably the best interior defensive lineman in this draft, but they were able to get A.J. Brown in a trade, a new wide receiver onto their offense. Now they don't have to have Jalen Reagor step anywhere near a football field, as you got A.J. Brown, you got Devontae Smith still out there, you got this Watkins guy who's been amazing as a slot wide receiver. You also have, who I've said, Dallas Goedert, one of the most underrated tight ends in the league. Now them being led by Jalen Hurts is a little bit of a red flag. We'll have to wait and see how that goes down. Obviously, Jalen Hurts has had a great career up to this point. Nick Sirianni has shown that he can make him work at the next level. We've seen that happen so far, but maybe Jalen Hurts is kind of that quarterback who next season could either be an MVP candidate or win the MVP or completely fall apart and need to be replaced. You can see either routes going for Jalen Hurts in this next year. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. But Jordan Davis coming onto that team is huge. Him pairing up with Fletcher Cox on the interior side of that defensive front. And also they added Hassan Reddick earlier this offseason. So Eagles really just went into from a non-playoff team to a potential Super Bowl. Actually, they were a playoff team. They slipped in as a 7th seed. That's right. They barely a playoff team into a potential Super Bowl contender this next season. Robert Saleh. That's right. I don't know how I forget his name. I love Robert Saleh as a defensive-minded head coach. People's name just slipped my mind a lot. This draft was disappointing, bro. I love last night. I was live last night during it, and it didn't have a fun trade back. Absolutely. I recorded my reaction, and I was so disappointed. I didn't even want to upload my reaction. LGK DOC says Gardner, Wilson, Johnson, all projected top 10 players in the Jets. Jets round one. Absolutely. The Jets had an outstanding round 1. And it's either the Jets or the Eagles, in my opinion. The Eagles to get Jordan Davis and also to be able to get A.J. Brown in a trade. mean, that's a massive win for the Eagles. Like I said, the Eagles might have just turned into a Super Bowl contender on one day. We'll have to wait and see how that happens. And I'm smiling, but I am not happy at all with that. I absolutely hate the Eagles. At the end of the day, they still had a great day. Joe Monaco says the Vikings, Vikings should have seen if Herschel Walker was available at 32. Yeah. You know, at the end of the day, maybe it wasn't the worst trade in Vikings history. I talked about this being one of the worst. Yeah, it wasn't even close, and it will never go down. We'll never had a worse trade than that Herschel Walker trade, but still, awful trade for the Minnesota Vikings to be trading down with the Detroit Lions and giving up arguably the best receiver in this draft class to the Lions, who should be 100% healthy. Now, talking about Jameson Williams, it's almost like people forgot that this guy going into this last season, halfway through the season, would have ended up being a first round or a top 10 draft pick in this draft if it wasn't for his ACL injury. And now going into this draft, now he looks like he's going to be fully recovered. I believe he's already almost all the way recovered from his ACL injury coming from the national championship. And now him going on to our own division rival, who we just took him and handed him to the Detroit Lions, was a terrible move by Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and an awful introduction into the starting round of the draft, in my personal opinion. Now, going into the second round, we do have a lot of options here. At the 34th pick, I really do like Andrew Booth Clemson. We also have in the third round, we have a lot of options. I absolutely love the OSU tight end, Ruckert. I would love the guy. I'd love the guy to come onto our team, but nothing is going to make up for this. Nothing right now this offseason is going to make up for this terrible trade the Vikings have just made. It's awful. It was an awful trade in my opinion. But excited for this next round of the draft. Excited for day 2 of the draft. We're going to have rounds 2 and 3. I'm excited to see where Malik Willis goes. We expected him to be a top 10 pick. Now, obviously, tanking his draft stock the last month. But going into this, I'm excited to see where he goes. Maybe he does go to Tampa Bay at the 33rd pick. That's very possible. Tampa Bay has to accept the fact that Tom Brady is likely on his last year in the league. He's shown that he wants to retire. He's just addicted to football and cannot retire. So maybe they do go with Malik Willis. We also could see Malik go to Detroit, which would be, oh my God, that would just add to Detroit, to the pain I'm having right now if the Detroit Lions were able to get Malik Willis, who could be that next man up from Jared Goff, as Goff has one more year left on the contract. Actually, he has more than 1 more year left on his contract. After this season is going to be a potential out, meaning he's likely going to be cut or traded after this next season. So we're going to have to see how that pans out with the Detroit Lions getting Aiden Hutchinson, getting Jameson Williams, and maybe getting Malik Willis if he's still available at that draft pick. Yeah, not what you want to see. Not what you want to see. I know it's the Detroit Lions, but we still play them twice a year. Vibes are laughing stock of the league right now. Absolutely. He has me scared for the second and third rounds. Me too, man. Me too. God. And it's like after the draft happened too, when they had the press conference with Kwesi, he was smiling the entire time, completely happy. He's like, "Oh, I was sweating. I was scared that Lewis Cine wasn't going to be available at 32." Who told this guy? Who told this guy that safeties don't get taken in the first round very often? When was the last time other than this draft we saw a safety taken in the first round? Was it 2018 with Derwin James? I don't remember. Maybe it was. It might have been. That might have been the last time a safety was taken in the first round, was that time. He's over here sweating that he's not going to be available. You can find starting caliber safeties in the 7th round. That's how many great safeties there are coming out of college. You just take safeties in the 7th round, have them develop, have them work, or you don't even have to draft them. Maybe we find the next Anthony Harris. I mean, you don't even have to draft safeties at the end of the day. Or Marcus Epps. Anthony Harris and Marcus Epps, both starting safeties for the Philadelphia Eagles. Us Minnesota Vikings found as undrafted free agents. Now they're starting safeties with the Eagles, who, like I talked about, the Eagles have an elite secondary, and going forward, that team should be unstoppable, which I hate to see it happen. LGKDOC says, screw it. I hope the Lions land Willis. Let it all burn. I don't. I really don't. I want Jared Goff to be the starting quarterback of the Lions for as long as possible. I want him starting there for 10 more years. I want to see that team completely fall apart from Jared Goff. I don't know where the Jared Goff lovers went. I remember a few years ago, a lot of people were talking about, oh, Jared Goff, he's just had a bad season. He had a down year. He's going to bounce back. He did go to the Super Bowl. We'll give him that. But that was when Sean McVay was his head coach instead of Dan Campbell. All respect to Dan Campbell, but he's not a creative offensive mind as Sean McVay, who can completely turn a quarterback into a superstar. But going forward, going into this first round of the draft, few teams should be very excited. The Eagles should be very ecstatic about who they got. The Lions should be super happy about absolutely robbing my Minnesota Vikings and getting arguably the best pass rusher in this draft class. The Jets, who got all potential top 10 picks, best corner, in my opinion, the best corner, in my opinion, the best wide receiver, and a top 5 edge rusher in this draft, should be ecstatic about who they got. There's a lot of teams that completely won. But who lost? Who took the biggest L? Might have been the Minnesota Vikings. Might have been. Might have been the Green Bay Packers. All right. That puts a smile on my face. At least there's something to be happy about. The Green Bay Packers had a terrible first round, not getting a wide receiver. All wide receivers were taken by the 15th pick. I guess they still could have took Christian Watson, the NDSU guy. They still had the option of taking George Pickens, the Georgia player, add another Georgia player to that team. A lot of Georgia players. There's 5 Georgia players taken in the first round, and Pickens could have been taken. N'Kobe Dean could have been taken. A lot of Georgia players there as well. But at least the Packers didn't have a first round. We also had a terrible round. Mr. Purple Power says, but at the end of the day, everything is better than having Sammy Watkins as your wide receiver 1. Absolutely, 100%. I love that comment. Sammy Watkins, I mean, respect to him. I believe he's going to be fine, but he's going to be injured by week 2, so we're not going to have to see much of him at the end of the day. Still, Packers didn't get a wide receiver. Maybe this is actually a good thing. Maybe us trading down with the Lions will end up being a good thing. Maybe if the Vikings didn't trade down with the Lions, Jameson Williams would be with the Packers. Okay, let's look on the bright side here. Maybe we dodged a bullet. It's very possible. Could you imagine Jameson Williams paired up with Aaron Rodgers? Guess we're never going to have to see how that's going to go about. That guy just runs past guys, and Aaron Rodgers has arguably the best deep ball in all of football. That would have been a monstrous duo. Instead, the Packers are stuck without a wide receiver and without an offensive guard, which is a great sight to see because at least we get that win in this draft. But all in all, Minnesota Vikings took a massive L in the first round of the draft, but we are here to bounce back like Big Sean once said. Last night took a L, but here I'm going to bounce back in the second and third round. I'm hoping we can land Andrew Booth. I'm hoping we can land Winfrey, and I'm hoping we can land Ruckert. If it was a hopeful draft, I'm really, really hoping we can land Falele and Tyreek Woolen in third rounds on top of that. But that's going to wrap up this episode of Morning Kickoff, a shorter episode. We're just here to recap the draft, here to get all of my emotions out in this draft like I already did on Twitter. I'm here to just take those Twitter emotions, compile them into one, and give it out onto the YouTube show. But I hope you all did enjoy tuning into this episode of the Morning Kickoff YouTube show. If you enjoyed, be sure to rate and subscribe to the podcast for more Minnesota Vikings and football-related content. Thank you all. I hope you all enjoy your second day of the draft and third day of the draft. I hope you enjoy the Minnesota Timberwolves absolutely annihilating the Memphis Grizzlies tonight. But at the end of the day, have yourself an amazing Friday and amazing weekend, Vikings fans. Skol, skol, skol. We out.